What makes a writer truly great? Is it the depth of their philosophy, their mastery of storytelling, or the sheer impact they leave on generations of readers? Few names in literature command as much reverence as Fyodor Dostoevsky and Leo Tolstoy. Their works not only transformed Russian literature, but left a permanent mark on global thought, influencing philosophy, psychology, politics, and even film. They are architects of the human condition, crafting narratives that probe the depths of morality, psychology, and existentialism. Despite being pillars of Russian literature, they approach these themes from vastly different angles. Dostoevsky is renowned for his emotional depth and existential crises, while Tolstoy is celebrated for his grand realism and moral inquiry. Let's dive into one of the greatest literary rivalries in history, Dostoevsky versus Tolstoy. By dissecting their lives, works, and impacts, we'll explore what sets them apart and who leaves a more lasting legacy. Both men lived through the turmoil of 19th century Russia, yet their personal lives were strikingly different. Dostoevsky was born in Moscow in 1821 into a family marked by poverty and a tumultuous relationship with his father. His early life was a precursor to the themes of struggle and redemption that would later dominate his works. Initially studying engineering, Dostoevsky soon turned to literature, a decision that led him down a path of both creative fulfillment and personal turmoil. His involvement in a subversive literary group resulted in a death sentence, which was commuted to exile in Siberia at the last moment. This experience profoundly influenced his writing, particularly in novels like Crime and Punishment, which explores guilt and redemption, and The Brothers Karamazov, which grapples with faith and morality. In contrast, Tolstoy was born in 1828 in Tula, Russia, into nobility. His life was initially marked by luxury, but he later underwent a profound spiritual crisis that led him to renounce his wealth. Tolstoy's education and extensive travels shaped his philosophical views, evident in novels like War and Peace, an epic intertwining history and fate, and Anna Karenina, a tragic exploration of love and societal hypocrisy. Despite their different backgrounds, both authors were influenced by major historical events. The Napoleonic Wars and the rise of nihilism in Russia shaped their works, though in distinct ways. For Dostoevsky, societal upheaval fueled his exploration of psychological turmoil, while Tolstoy's experiences during the Crimean War shaped his views on war and human nature. Tolstoy came to believe that history is driven by societal forces rather than individual actions, a perspective reflected in his novels. As we reflect on Dostoevsky's writing style, it's clear that his works are characterized by their raw intensity and chaotic exploration of the human psyche. In Notes from Underground, the protagonist declares, "I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man. I think my liver is diseased," setting the tone for his introspective and psychologically complex narratives. This intensity is vividly illustrated in Crime and Punishment, where the protagonist, Raskolnikov, justifies his crime by saying, "I wanted to murder without casuistry, to murder for my own sake, for myself alone. I didn't want to lie about it even to myself." This quote highlights Raskolnikov's internal conflict and struggle with moral ambiguity. Dostoevsky's characters are not just people. They are walking moral dilemmas, representing the battle of ideas. His novels are akin to fever dreams, marked by sudden outbursts, intense philosophical debates, and shocking confessions, which create a sense of psychological turmoil. In The Brothers Karamazov, he notes, "The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to such a pass that he cannot distinguish the truth within him or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others." This theme of self-deception underscores the complexity of human emotions and the blurred lines between truth and falsehood. Additionally, Dostoevsky emphasizes that pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth, highlighting the inherent role of suffering in profound human experience. Tolstoy's writing style is distinguished by its clarity, simplicity, and profound moral and philosophical depth. He combines keen observations of detail with a straightforward narrative approach, making his works both accessible and artistically sophisticated. Tolstoy focuses on depicting the external world and societal structures, using detailed descriptions to create a sense of authenticity. Each element in his narrative serves to enrich the reader's understanding of the characters and their environments. His sentence structure often reflects the internal state of his characters, with longer sentences in moments of turmoil and shorter ones in moments of clarity. This technique allows him to explore complex themes without imposing a didactic voice, instead using dialogue and inner monologue to dissect moral dilemmas and philosophical reflections. One of Tolstoy's most insightful observations on human nature is captured in his quote, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." This highlights his emphasis on personal transformation as a catalyst for broader change. In War and Peace, Tolstoy explores the idea that historical events are driven by societal forces rather than individual actions. As he notes, causes of historical events, there are not and cannot be, save the cause of all causes. But there are laws controlling these events, laws partly unknown, partly accessible to us. This perspective underscores the complexity of historical events as part of a larger, interconnected system. In contrast to Dostoevsky's intense psychological explorations that probe the darkest corners of the human mind, Tolstoy's works are more expansive, focusing on broader social and historical contexts. Tolstoy seeks to reveal life's underlying reality by depicting its contradictions, offering a panoramic view of society rather than delving into individual psyches. As Virginia Woolf observed, Russian literature, including Tolstoy's works, has a unique ability to reveal the simplicity and humanity of its characters, making their stories universally relatable. Ultimately, the question of which approach is greater, diving into chaos or seeking harmony, depends on the reader's perspective. Both authors offer profound insights into human nature, but through different lenses. Beyond their distinctive literary styles, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy have left an indelible mark on literature and society, influencing philosophical thought, inspiring notable figures, and shaping cultural adaptations and academic discussions. Let's delve into the specific works that have solidified their positions as giants in literary history. Dostoevsky's works were instrumental in shaping existentialist and psychological literature. His novel, Crime and Punishment, revolutionized how guilt, morality, and psychology were portrayed in fiction. Sigmund Freud admired Dostoevsky's exploration of guilt and repression, considering him an early pioneer of psychological fiction. Friedrich Nietzsche, too, was fascinated by Dostoevsky, calling him the only psychologist from whom I had something to learn. His magnum opus, The Brothers Karamazov, tackled questions of faith, morality, and free will, inspiring existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. Einstein called it the most magnificent novel ever written. The Grand Inquisitor chapter remains a topic of debate in universities worldwide, influencing theological and philosophical discussions. Notes from Underground, often regarded as the first existentialist novel, introduced a bitter, unnamed narrator who rejects society and grapples with his own contradictions. This novella laid the foundation for modern existentialism, shaping thought on free will and rebellion. Its portrayal of the alienated individual influenced iconic outsider characters like Holden Caulfield and Travis Bickle, as well as Cold War-era literature. Dostoevsky's influence extends to modern literature and cinema. Franz Kafka was deeply shaped by Dostoevsky's existential themes, while George Orwell's 1984 and Albert Camus' The Stranger echo his explorations of moral ambiguity and internal conflict. Contemporary thrillers like American Psycho borrow from Dostoevsky's psychologically tormented protagonists. Dostoevsky's stories have been adapted multiple times into film, theatre, and opera. Akira Kurosawa's The Idiot, 1951, brought his themes to Japanese cinema, while Crime and Punishment has inspired countless adaptations worldwide. His themes of guilt and redemption continue to shape modern psychological dramas like Joker, 2019. Beyond his well-known novels, Dostoevsky's lesser-known works, such as The Village of Stepanchikovo and The Double, offer profound insights into human nature. These works explore psychological themes and societal critiques, further enriching our understanding of Dostoevsky's impact on literature. Tolstoy's major works and influence. War and Peace is not only a masterpiece of historical fiction, but also a deep exploration of human relationships and societal forces. This novel revolutionized historical fiction by depicting war as a chaotic force beyond individual control, challenging the traditional view that history is shaped by great men. Tolstoy's emphasis on personal transformation and moral responsibility has inspired many. Mahatma Gandhi, for instance, was deeply influenced by Tolstoy's writings on non-violence and simplicity, as seen in The Kingdom of God is Within You, which Gandhi said overwhelmed him. This influence extends to literature as well. Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago reflects a similar historical and philosophical scope, demonstrating how Tolstoy's works have shaped the genre of historical fiction. Historically, War and Peace remains one of the most detailed and realistic accounts of warfare in literature. World leaders have admired Tolstoy's moral philosophy, with Winston Churchill calling the novel the greatest novel ever written. In addition to its historical significance, Anna Karenina is a major reference point in feminist literary criticism. It critiques rigid societal norms and gender expectations, portraying a woman trapped in a patriarchal system. Tolstoy's later works, such as The Death of Ivan Ilyich, furthered his influence in philosophy, particularly in existentialist thought and discussions on mortality. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who developed logotherapy, drew inspiration from Tolstoy's exploration of finding meaning in suffering. Tolstoy's novels have been adapted into some of the greatest cinematic works of all time. The Soviet War and Peace, 1966, is considered one of the most ambitious films ever made, while Anna Karenina has been adapted dozens of times, with the 2012 Keira Knightley film bringing the novel's themes to a modern audience. His influence is also seen in literature, from Hemingway's war novels to modern depictions of aristocracy and class struggles. Although Dostoevsky and Tolstoy are often considered the twin giants of Russian literature, they never met in person. Despite this, their ideas, philosophies, and literary approaches were frequently contrasted, leading to an intellectual rivalry, one that was more fan-driven than personal. Their differences in worldview, religious beliefs, which was one of the biggest points of contention between the two, and narrative focus sparked debates among readers, critics, and even their contemporaries. As previously covered, Dostoevsky's works often explored the struggle between faith and doubt, depicting suffering, redemption, and the search for God. He embraced the messiness of human nature, believing that salvation could only come through suffering. In contrast, Tolstoy later rejected traditional Christianity, embracing a form of pacifist and ascetic Christianity. This divergence in religious views influenced their literary themes, with Dostoevsky focusing on redemption through suffering and Tolstoy advocating for moral perfectionism. Dostoevsky likely would have disagreed with Tolstoy's rejection of traditional Christianity, though he died before Tolstoy's full spiritual transformation. However, Tolstoy did not think highly of Dostoevsky's approach to religion. He criticized Dostoevsky's focus on suffering and redemption, once remarking that his works felt exaggerated and unrealistic. Tolstoy and Dostoevsky took vastly different approaches to storytelling. Their approaches influenced later literary movements. Tolstoy's mastery of realism influenced literary giants like Vladimir Nabokov and James Joyce, who incorporated Tolstoyan elements in their works, such as vivid depictions of everyday life and psychological depth. Nabokov particularly praised Tolstoy's attention to minute details and his development of the stream of consciousness technique. Dostoevsky, on the other hand, profoundly shaped existentialist thinkers and writers. Albert Camus was deeply influenced by him, as evident in works like The Myth of Sisyphus, where he grapples with the absurdity of human existence. William Faulkner, the American novelist, also cited Dostoevsky as a primary inspiration, particularly The Brothers Karamazov, which he frequently reread. Additionally, Friedrich Nietzsche considered Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground a masterful psychological work, further illustrating Dostoevsky's wide-ranging impact on Western literature and philosophy. Russian critics of the time were divided. Some admired Tolstoy's realism and saw him as a historian of the human soul, while others praised Dostoevsky's depth of character psychology and existential dilemmas. Despite their ideological differences, both authors read and admired each other's works. In his final years, Dostoevsky greatly admired Anna Karenina and praised Tolstoy's ability to capture human emotions. He wrote that Tolstoy had a talent given by God. Tolstoy had a more complicated view. He greatly admired Dostoevsky's The House of the Dead, a semi-autobiographical novel about his time in a Siberian prison camp. However, Tolstoy found Dostoevsky's later works too dark and exaggerated, particularly The Brothers Karamazov. When Dostoevsky died in 1881 at the age of 59, Tolstoy expressed deep regret at never having met him. Both authors faced personal controversies that significantly shaped their public images and influenced their works. Dostoevsky's experiences in Siberia profoundly impacted his writing, particularly in The House of the Dead. His turbulent personal life, marked by a severe gambling addiction and financial struggles, also influenced his literary output, as he often wrote quickly to pay off debts. Tolstoy's life was equally tumultuous. His radical religious views, which led to his excommunication from the Russian Orthodox Church, inspired pacifist movements. His marriage to Sophia Tolstaya was also complex. She managed his finances and edited his work, but their relationship became strained when Tolstoy renounced his wealth and refused to leave her anything in his will. In the end, the perceived rivalry between Tolstoy and Dostoevsky was more a clash of ideas than a personal feud. They shaped two different schools of thought, each contributing uniquely to literary and philosophical discourse. In conclusion, Their contrasting views have influenced generations of writers and thinkers, but their impact has taken different forms. As George Steiner once noted, the choice between them is akin to choosing between different artistic visions, each with its own profound insights into human nature. The question of who is greater is ultimately a matter of perspective, whether the depths of human suffering or the vastness of human history hold more power. What is undeniable, however, is that both authors are indispensable to our understanding of the human condition. Their works continue to shape how we see ourselves and the world around us. The greatest testament to their genius is that we are still debating their ideas today. Greatness in literature is not just about skill, it's about impact. So, who speaks to you? Who changes the way you see the world? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth explorations of literature's greatest minds.